Hey, what is up, mortals? It is me, Dylan, here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 4 of What If Dabi and Shoto Switched Places. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. So, we begin. Continuing from last time, just before the practical test of the UA entrance exam begins, all the participants stand in awe over the sheer size of the training field. Examinees were gasping and walking along the outside of the walls. Whoa, this is nuts! It's like a whole city. Can you imagine how much it cost to build this? UA is amazing! Toya found himself taken back. The sheer size of the training grounds were massive. He had discussed the layout with his father on several occasions, but never did he imagine that it'd be so massive. More so, he didn't imagine that it could be so large and that there were several of those fake cities set around UA for the sake of training. He approached the gates with the large group and began sizing up everybody around him. He didn't seem terribly impressed. He did spot two familiar figures amongst the crowd of generic wannabe heroes. The boy who nearly fell on his face earlier that day, and the girl who saved him, along with the larger guy who called him out for muttering constantly during their brief. He seemed to be doing it again, muttering to himself about something that Dabi couldn't quite hear, due to all the other voices constantly going off around him. What a weird kid, he thought to himself. He seemed terrified, quivering in his boots, before the trial even started. Izuku, meanwhile, was going through what President Mike had told all of them about the rules of the test, and what you needed to do to succeed. There are 3 types of foe villains in every battle center. You'll earn points based on their level of difficulty, so better choose wisely. Your goal in this trial is to use your quirk to raise your score by shredding these foe villains like a mid-song guitar solo. As if snapping back to reality, Izuku blinked and gulped, staring in disbelief at the walls before slowly turning his gaze towards everybody else. Okay, this is it! A mock battle! How come none of these guys seem nervous at all? Are they that confident? Oh, some of them even have special gear. Afterwards, his eyes locked on that same girl from earlier in the day, the one that prevented him from smashing his face, Ochako Uraraka. Toya watched as the boy's expression shifted into what he could only describe as a nervous face attempting to fake an aura of confidence. He'd slowly approached the girl while making that same expression. He rubbed his temples and he started walking over. He placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder and stated simply, "Bit of advice? Maybe don't try and talk to girls looking like that. You are going to embarrass yourself." Tenya moved in as well, deciding to emphasize what he said earlier towards Izuku, only for Izuku to gasp at both the man covered in burn scars and Tenya. He didn't notice him amongst the crowd when he briefly looked over them. Moreover, she looks like she's trying to focus on the trials ahead. What are you going to do? Distract her and ruin her chances to succeed? The crowd began to giggle and laugh at Izuku. It wasn't hard to imagine why. He was sort of being outed as nothing exceptional thus far. No, of course not. Hey, over there. That's the guy who almost bit it out front earlier. He practically wet himself in the lecture hall. Dude, what a loser. But one less rival to worry about, I guess. The other teenagers would collectively remark, "He's out." This video is sponsored by Adobe. Adobe is redefining the digital experience through game-changing innovations that shape the next generation of storytelling. Adobe makes it easy to create, edit, and share digital documents securely, allowing you to collaborate and communicate across devices. Adobe Photoshop is your to-go-to application for raster graphics editing and digital art as a whole. At We the Celestials, all our thumbnails across every channel are created with Adobe Photoshop. Adobe Premiere Pro is a timeline-based and non-linear video editing software application that is versatile and easy for beginning and master editors. Finally, Adobe After Effects is the industry standard tool for digital visual effects, motion graphics, and compositing applications used in post-production. Many of our voice actors, audio editors, and video editors use Premiere Pro and After Effects to produce these high-quality videos. Click the link in the description to start creating now. And thank you to Adobe for sponsoring this video. Toya would rub the back of his head. Honestly, that seemed a little too extreme. Nobody here even really got to see what his quirk actually was. But hey, he wasn't about to stick his neck out for somebody random. He had to reach the top of the leaderboards and establish himself as being the best newcoming student to UA. Suddenly, a familiar voice yelled out from overhead, "Right! Let's start!" To which everybody stared idly, looking up towards President Mike as he stood atop of a large structure meant for observing the whole city. "Get moving! There are no countdowns and real battles! Run, listeners! You're wasting airtime here!" And within an instant, everybody took off sprinting into the open doors of the city. The sound of robots being smashed to pieces began to echo throughout the area, along with the grunts and call-outs of various students. Toya had issues with his trial, using his flames to blast the machines to pieces, melting them down as he rushed through the streets. He didn't have the mobility that the other students had, and wasn't able to easily find each type of machine, but his fast flames ensured that even if others were engaging with a robot in combat, he could easily secure the points for himself with little more than a flick of a wrist. In one instance, he'd glanced behind himself and saw Izuku standing in front of a one-point mech and lifted his hand to blast it, barely blasting it to pieces before a blue laser cut through the flames. "Foiled by far that strapping gentleman! Toodaloo! Bonjour!" The boy with the belly button laser ran off in a different direction as Toya grit his teeth and looked towards the green-haired boy and spoke quickly. "Hey! No idea what you're planning to do there, but if you're just going to stand around, leave the area. Nobody here should need to save you." With that, he left, injecting that belief into Izuku before he continued to rack up points. Determined to maintain his #1 spot on the scoreboard, announcements were steadily made about the amount of time remaining in the event, and at roughly the 3-minute mark, the massive machine the examinees were warned about appeared. Dabi briefly stopped, lowering his arm after ensuring the machine that he was blasting with flames completely melted away before he turned his attention elsewhere. He gawked for a few moments. It almost looked as if a skyscraper had come to life. It fit within what he was warned about. As far as he was concerned, that was definitely not something they were meant to take on. Not at all. But some part of his mind wanted to try. He wasn't entirely sure why. It might have been his father, constantly urging and insisting that he really excel and overcome as a hero, to become no stranger to any obstacle. Only for Dabi to hear someone distantly call out having nearly 50 villain points, which urged Dabi to action. While taking on that thing would be a great way to show off his power and ability, it wasn't his objective, so he continued, destroying machine after machine, as he went only to catch out of the corner of his eye a bright green bolt of lightning flinging itself up towards the giant mecha. He watched in awe as Izuku flung himself in the face of unbelievable danger and swung with all of his might at the massive villain, and with an echoing explosion followed the sounds of metal dinging and crumbling in on itself. The massive villain fell backwards, its headpiece caving in as smaller explosions blasted through its neck and into its upper body. Nearly every person in the city had stopped, marveled by the absurd display of strength. However, seconds after the swing actually connected, Dabi saw as the kid began to rapidly plummet towards the earth. He figured that there had to be some sort of plan Izuku was putting into effect. Otherwise, why would he leap knowing he had no way down? And then he continued to fall, getting closer and closer to the ground. Briefly, he was overcome with the desire to do something. Anything to prevent that brave kid from smashing headfirst into the concrete, and took off running, attempting to place himself underneath, where Izuku would most likely hit the ground, and extended his arms, only to briefly catch Uraraka, floating on a smaller robot's headpiece beside him, when Izuku was roughly the same height level as she was, slapping him across the face and dramatically reducing his falling speed using her quirk. And release! The two gently floated to the ground, and the girl began to vomit rainbows? Toya couldn't help but stare. That's one strange drawback to a quirk. In any case, he looked down to Izuku and shook his head. It almost looked like he wasn't able to handle the power of his own quirk. A great deal of sadness passed through him as he saw Izuku suddenly start dragging his broken body through the debris-filled streets. It was obvious that he hadn't got a single point, and with so little time on the clock. And that's it! Time's up! An alarm buzzer rang throughout the city, causing any machines remaining to completely cease any and all function as the students began to move towards where the giant robot had fallen, only to catch Izuku laying on the ground, broken from the use of his own quirk. Toya shook his head, and based on the whispering he had heard, it seemed that his score was well above everybody else's in this section, scoring a staggering 60 points. He'd start to leave the area, while everybody began to speak about Izuku. Did you see that dude's attack? I didn't think he had that kind of strength. Me either. Looked like some kind of reinforcement type quirk. But there was something else. By this point, Toya passed by Tenya was standing by. Based on his expression, it almost seemed like he felt bad that he verbally degraded Izuku as much as he had leading up to this. Dabi just shook his head and continued out of the city. He had no reason to wait around and converse. He'd done his part, and now he just needed to wait to be accepted into UA. Thank you for indulging yourselves in all this information thus far. I hope you enjoyed it, really. Now, there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials has got you covered. Our We the Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I'd like to extend you an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being that we only accept members from 16 years and up. To join our crew, you can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interest by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching and have a great day.